This is Evolve Your Health Beyond the Bench, a podcast dedicated to everything fitness, health and adventure. This is your time to evolve.
Paul, obviously we knew each other from younger years when you'd done a little bit of boxing from Sunderland, and I think it would probably be fair to say quite humble beginnings, really, isn't it? So what planted the seed with your most recent challenge?
Depression.
Right. Fair play.
Got stuck in a rut. Spent the last 13 years focusing on work, like building a house, trying to get enough money to get by, and just give up on my fitness. And started drinking many years ago, and it just become a habit. Just work, drink, sleep.
The root of all evil, isn't it? And I think a bit of a repetitive cycle that you hear time and time again, isn't it?
It is, and you never believe it's a problem. I was always, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. And most of the time I think I was, but it was, funny enough, it was when I stopped drinking, I started having the biggest problems.
I think most people in that situation believe they've got control of the problem.
Yeah.
Do you think you missed that competitiveness that's in you?
Yeah, for sure. I was just trying to figure out why I'm so unhappy, and it took many years to realize it's just I gave my fitness up, and the one thing what kept me truly happy was my fitness and my health, and I had to do something about it. And luckily, I didn't go too far. I could bring it all back.
Because you retired from professional boxing quite young, didn't you?
27. Yeah. Went to bed one night and decided that I was quitting, and woke up the next day, felt the same, and God told me that was it.
Why do you think you just decided to quit? Because since from being young you boxed amateur, then obviously went on to professional.
Yeah, I've never actually spoke out loud to anyone about it really, but not that it was a secret, it just never really talked about it. Boxing's tough and you want to quit a million times. There's 1,000 reasons why you should or shouldn't, but I just wasn't getting anywhere. I was 27 years old, didn't have a job, 100% focused on the boxing. And as anyone knows who's in boxing, you don't get paid much, if any. And I was getting so many cuts on my eyes. Luckily enough, the fights weren't getting stopped. They never did. But it was like fighting once or twice a year, and then I'd recover, I'd heal, and I'd get in a gym in a sparring session, and I'd get cut in a sparring session. And you were watching people who you beat go on to box for titles or go on and progress. And there's only so long you can sit on the sidelines and just keep plugging away and not getting anywhere.
So you think it was obviously not being paid for it, and then the injuries and seeing people that you could beat go further and getting chances that you should have got?
Yeah, and I was always going into the fights rusty because, there's only so much sparring you could do before you start getting worried about getting cut.
It's fair to say, isn't it? You see people that can inevitably sell a lot of tickets, but
yeah.
I mean, don't get us wrong, they're obviously gifted enough to be considered for a professional contract, but they sell a lot of tickets, and that gives them a huge step up, I suppose.
I didn't realise that when I was younger, getting into the business, that it's an entertainment business, and it's about putting bums on seats. It's money.
It's more of a popularity contest these days, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm not that type of guy. As you knew growing up, you'd never see me down the town, very rarely, or in a club. I didn't have lots of friends, just a quiet person. So when it come to selling tickets, although I was going to put on a great boxing show, I didn't have many friends, not many people knew who I was, So the other guys, yeah.
Paul, was obviously some people watching you though because you spent a period of that time on Sky TV's Prizefighter. How did that come about?
Yeah. Prizefighter come about, that was a great thing for boxing. And obviously Tommy, being the promoter he is, and having these connections, got me involved with the first lightweight Prizefighter, which was great. It puts you in the spotlight as if you were boxing for a world title. You got the whole country viewing that show, so you get your name around. Obviously, coming to a disappointing end. Still quite bitter about it. but
I mean, you were there on the night, and I don't think there's anything to be disheartened about. To be fair, it was certainly a show.
Yeah, I won the fight. I mean, everyone knows it. He knew it. Ryan Brawley knew it. His parents knew it. The fans knew it. Everybody knew it, and that could have changed my career.
Like we said earlier, he might have just put more bums on seats.
Yeah. But when I say I'm a bit bitter about it, I'm bitter if I watched the fight. I think I watched it twice in 15 years, whatever it's been. You know, when I walked away from boxing, I walked away 100%. I've never once looked back. Don't go to the gym.
You've never looked back. Did you ever regret it? Did you ever get itchy feet or want to?
Never once.
No.
Are you still a fan of boxing though? Do you watch boxing yourself still?
Nope, I don't watch it. I don't talk about it. If I was in a group, you would think I was making it up. I don't know anything about it. I quit that night, and I never ever got involved with it again.
That's probably not a bad thing at the minute, really, is it?
That was probably the best thing you could have done, to be honest, especially.
Paul, we'll move on to something more positive for you then, I suppose. So, world champion?
That's what sounds funny.
World champion from downhill in Sunderland there.
Yeah.
I watched your interview, I think it was on ITV, and it was only 18 months ago that you started running, was it? Is that correct?
It was, yeah. Like I said, I was in a bad way, and I needed to get out of it, and I was heading to work, and I Googled the toughest challenge in the world, and that was the first thing that come up, top of the list. World Marathon Challenge 777, which at the time sounded impossible.
Certainly does for the vast majority, doesn't it?
Did you ever think that you were going to do it though, even though you Googled it?
The second I seen it, I was attracted. I couldn't get out of my head for the next 3 days. That's all I was thinking about.
How do you compare that with somebody like Mo Farah? So obviously an elite runner, very quick over a marathon, but can he do 7 marathons over 7 days? And then putting in the logistics of the transport, the jet lag, the nutrition, the recovery. So how would you compare yourself to someone like Mo at the minute? Yeah,
well, I can't even put us in the same sentence, to be honest with you, mate. Those guys...
There's a lot of people that would.
Well, appreciate it, and that's a great compliment, but those guys are just another level. They spent all their lives running.
Yeah, but you've just started running, and you've done something that's probably people have been training for years and years, and you beat them.
I did. I was the least experienced in the field, and I thought I'd come around about 20th or 30th position. So when I went into the first run, once I realised I was in like 4th or 5th spot within a few miles, I thought, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe they're all holding back.
And then mindset turns out, and you can't let it go.
Yeah,
you must have had a good coach.
Well, Sonrisa. So once I realised I was going to take on this challenge, I really thought I was just going to start running. I just thought I'm just going to start running, and that's going to be it. But I never used the term. I couldn't have done it without you, but I really couldn't have done it without Sonrisa, because even with only 19-month experience, the amount of knowledge she's passed over, you cannot just. If you think you're just going to go out there and run and you're going to be able to do a marathon or 7 in a day, in a week, it's not going to happen. So Sonrisa's wife worked for our company, who was great friends with my wife, and we linked up, and I called Sonrisa and told her my details, told her what I wanted to achieve. And can you remember that call, Sonrisa?
I sure do. I was like, we're going to do what, Paul? And he said, we're going to run 7 marathons. I said, okay. We're going to do it. And it started with, before we sign up and really, get into this 7 marathons in 7 days, we need to see who you are as a runner. I currently am the nurse in the sports medicine facility here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We train world-class athletes. I work with USA track and field athletes as well. So when he told me who his background was, it wasn't shocking to me that somebody that can stand in a ring and take blows to the face would come up with this idea, because it takes a different type of minded person to get into the boxing ring and to sustain and to bounce around and give the hits and take the hits. So he told me he wanted to take on this adventure. I was like, okay. So we trained for 6 months and we got into the San Antonio Marathon. And how we trained him was, I knew he was not a conventional runner, right? You just can't take a guy from the couch to a marathon and say, we're going to go win it. And so what we really focused in on was really cross-training him, because he's strong in many facets. And so what we focused in on, we definitely got our mileage in, but with him, I always focused on quality running versus a lot of distance running. In my world of sports medicine, we see a lot of overtrained, we see a lot of fractures, we saw a lot of nutritional deficits and eating disorders. And so coming at it from that mindset and looking at him, I said, we're going to do this the right way. And I'm going to listen to you. We're going to listen to your body. So many, I believe, coaches out there live vicariously through their athletes. They overtrain them, they underfeed them, they're mentally and physically exhausted. And that was not my goal with him. I really wanted him to enjoy this transition. He was going through something mentally, so it didn't really do us any justice to stress him out. Don't make this a second job. And if it becomes a job, go ahead.
So what about the saying then that you can't teach? What is it? Is it you can't teach an old
dog new tricks?
Yeah.
You can, because it wasn't so much old tricks. These were new tricks, right? This was something brand new that he had never even experienced. And it was a world that I knew he could take on. And we started real slow. I remember the first race. The first run he went on in San Antonio. And I said, okay, we're just going to go on a 3-mile run. I want you to go on the run and I want you to call me. And he came back and I remember he was laying on his kitchen floor. And he says, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And I was like, no, you're not. So
what
we
position
really
did you
at that
come
point.
In the first marathon,
Yeah.
I think I come 18th position.
Oh, wow. And so that was like a full-size marathon?
Yep.
Full size.
Yep, full marathon, yep.
Thousands of participants. That's quite an
So-
achievement as well, isn't it, for a first one?
As his coach, were you confident that he would be able to do the 7 marathons in 7 days, 7 different countries?
Yes, as we got through, there was never a doubt in my mind that he wouldn't be able to accomplish it. As we got through, up into the 18th month and we were getting ready for the race, his transition from the very first marathon to where we flew him to South Africa, he had made so many changes to his lifestyle, his mental stability, his physical ability, his strength, his commitment to training, commitment to nutrition, and commitment to the sport all changed. And when we got to South Africa, I knew we were ready. There's only so much training you can do, so much videos you can watch. But when he stood on that start line and we saw him take off, I knew from his stride, I knew from just how he carried himself on that when the gun went off, that we were going to do something special. And it was just his perseverance and his determination. There's nobody that I've met in my world as of yet, and I've been in sports medicine for almost 17 years, that has his drive. And you can tell Paul, you're not going to do this, Paul. You have to slow down. Don't go too fast. And you'll watch the watch and he's going faster. He's going faster. He's going faster. And you're like, okay, here we go, and only he knows what his body can do. And I was like, keep going. What's the worst is going to happen? Your body's just going to stomp you. But at that point, then we'll continue on and we'll fix that and we'll move on and we'll go. And that was just me listening to him as a coach. He taught me a lot about just, Pat, just keep driving through adversity. And when things aren't going your way, you just don't quit. And that was the really joyful thing about coaching him. It was just so much fun. It was just, what's next? That was, our mentality. What's next?
So as a sports scientist, obviously if you've got somebody that needs to work on the fitness, that's something that can be achieved relatively easy. But I suppose mindset and cognitive ability to be able to push through the boundaries, I suppose. You hear of people on half marathons and single marathons hitting the wall. How
Guys, you've gone silent.
Sorry? Can you hear us okay? Can you hear us okay? Or?
Yep, you're back on.
So as a sports scientist with mindset and cognitive ability, obviously that was quite important to you because you can work on fitness, I suppose, a bit easier than you can change somebody's thought process. But when you look at things like marathon runners hitting the wall, was there some training leading up to the marathons in terms of how you were going to inevitably deal with that? Did you have to deal with that?
Are you asking me that or Sonrisa?
Communally, I suppose.
Yeah.
How was it for you, Paul? Did you hit the wall at any point?
I did. Yes and no way. On the sixth run in Brazil, we landed at 4:30 and it was 29 degrees and the humidity was off the charts. And I knew at that point I was 15 minutes ahead of Alan, who was my closest competitor there. And I didn't want to give up a second. And I should have took it easier, but after about 6 mile, I was trying to just keep in front of him, and I was done. I think that was my slowest race, about 3:34. I could barely run, could barely jog. Both of us would hit the wall at the same time, and we were just shuffling through it. It was so hot. But because I'm only experienced in a few races now, I think 7 races going into that competition, and 5 of them were wins. I'm not used to trailing. I'm not used to being behind. And what happened is, after getting beat on day 1 by Alan, and then on day 2 we took off on the second race, I'm watching these runners run ahead of me. It's very disheartening. And you're only 2 mile into 26 mile, and you see people, 3 or 4 people ahead of you. And with experience now or in the future, you can look and think, I'll catch up. But you just think that your race is over. And you know, your heart's pounding, you're feeling sorry for yourself, you're tired, and it's just hard to catch back up. And mentally, it's easy to think, I'm done, I'm beat, I'm finished, I'm going to only come 3rd this week, 4th this week, 5th this week.
Or just, what am I doing here?
Yeah, what am I doing here? I'm not a runner. As many times I've said that, you know, I've never believed I was a runner. I'm not a runner like these people. Nearly everyone in that field beat me by 5, 10, 15 minutes as a personal best. They've all got years of experience.
How was the camaraderie? How was the banter between the runners? I suppose more so during the travelling stages, really, when you weren't competing against each other. Was it quite a hostile environment, or?
No, the running world, some of the best people you'll meet. It's not like the boxing world. I'm still like that. I'm still like
me against
I'm still
you.
Focused. I'm still in fight mode. I got my head down. I'm not talking to anybody. You know, I'm seeing things in my head which I'm sure they weren't saying, but they're all patting each other on the back and supporting each other, and that's what it's like in running. Everyone supports each other, and it's one of the best communities I've ever been in. Nothing against boxing. I mean, no one's going to hurt you physically after the fight for not winning or whatever, but there's always that grudge there in boxing. So, where in running, I feel like the next person wants you to win just as much as they want to win sometimes.
What was the strategy going into the races, bearing in mind the different climates, and like how you're going to train for all the different climates that you were in one place?
Yeah. You just got to make do. I mean, living in Texas, I'm definitely used to the heat. So the only time that played in my favour was Cape Town, where and it really wasn't too hot. The guy who won on the first day found it really hard. On the second day in Cape Town, he says it was hot, where I was used to the heat. All our Fort Delays of Brazil was ridiculously hot. It was the humidity what killed us. There was a few people, only 2 people in that race, I think, done well, and they've lived in places like Miami where it's hot and humid. So I just had to make do with where I was living and working. I work in Memphis, so I got the hot summers, and then leading up to that race, it was pretty cold here and a bit of snow on the ground. So I got used to running in the cold a little bit. But yeah, unless you're a world traveler, you're not going to really be fully prepared for every.
So how was Antarctica for you? Because obviously, if you're used to running the heat, you enjoy the sunnier climate. And then day 1, you're kind of South Pole, was it?
Yeah, it was Antarctic, South Pole. So we took a lot of different clothing because we didn't know what weather we're going to get. We knew it was going to be cold,
I'm pretty
but
much
it could have
saying
been
we're doing
minus
some
10, it
snow
could have
there.
been minus 20. Yeah. But when we got off the plane, it was minus 5, but it felt like t-shirt weather because it was so
Right.
bright. You got the sun reflecting off the ground. It's coming from the top. It's coming from every angle. So I thought, oh, I've got too much clothes here. So I only wore like 2 thin t-shirts. And after the first loop, I think it was like 3-mile loops, 3.3-mile loops. I needed to take my clothes off. I was sweating. I was absolutely sweating. I was like, this is too hot. But the way it was like a triangular shape loop, and as you run down one side of that, the wind would hit you in the face, and you have freeze, like your face was freezing, freeze burn, cold. And then when you hit the other side, you would miss the wind, and the sun's on you. You're sweating. Your goggles are steaming up. So it was a constant change. But I felt too hot in that race.
So I guess this one's for your coach. How did you prepare him for, bearing in mind he's doing a marathon a day, but also travelling every day? So what would be the protocols that you gave him for that?
How we initially approached it was to be honest with you, people didn't really believe us, but we didn't go over 50 miles a week in running. We kept it to about 45 to 50 miles a week. In addition, we added in the Peloton cycling bike because that really does activate a lot of the other lower body muscles without, impaction into the ground of just running. And then we would do sprint training, and then we also do some weight training, and then we just really focus in on cleaning up the nutrition and eating. It's interesting that you see a lot of these high-level runners just sucking on the gels. You'll see them just eating those gels. Well, that really does cause a lot of abdominal discomfort. So we focused on him was eat. You're out there. It's not so much that you're eating. You are eating for the current moment that you're running, but you're also preparing your body for the next race. There's a saying that we often give our athletes is called time under tension. It's just the amount of tension and time that your body, your muscles in contraction that's going to fatigue the body. So because we didn't want him to develop a condition called rhabdo, because that's just the amount of muscle, the protein that kind of spills out of the muscle when it's just pounding into pavement, and the constant contraction of the muscle. So we didn't want him to develop that as we went through the races. So we really just focused in on quality running, time under tension, nutrition between each run and races, and hydration. And when you look at the 7 different elements on the 7 different continents, the hardest one to prepare for was probably Antarctica, because we really didn't know what we're going to experience, right? You didn't know how cold, how hot, and then who can really run on snow and ice, right? And I think that was interesting. He said the only thing that stressed him out for that race was the top of his quads were sore, because it's not like you can get grip on ice, right? You're kind of just shuffling. And I think as the race went on, I think the racers kind of made a path. So you kind of just stuck to your path and you just kind of kept doing your loops. And so that's really how we trained him. We just kept it smart. We didn't really try to fall into any other runner's mentality. I think that's a big thing when you get into the runner's world. Everybody says, I want to do what they do. I want to do what they do. I want to eat how they do. And I told him, I said, we're going to stick true to who you are. Stop trying to be like everybody else. And when we focused in on those, it made it so much easier. I remember we did the Memphis 50, and that's the t-shirt he's wearing right now. And we did a 50-miler. And as the runners were coming in, they were, I believe, 6-mile loops. As the runners were coming in, I'd run and I'd give them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, Gatorade with honey, and he'd take off and run. And these other runners are just sucking on gels. And I remember they were calling him Yellow Shoes because he was wearing yellow Asics. He said, here comes Yellow Shoes. And he'd run through and I'd feed him and he'd go again. And the coaches were like, why do you feed him? And I said, the question is, why aren't you feeding your athletes? Mine's winning. You guys are losing. And so every time he would just run around, he had the biggest smile on his face. He was comfortable. His muscles are activating. And it was just a beautiful sight to see him just come and go. And he wasn't even struggling. And I think so many runners forget that nutrition is power. Hydration is power.
It's probably quite fair to say, and Marc will back us up, he's in effect the nutritional expert here, but we live in a day and age where we're quite reliant on shakes and gels and things out of a bottle and things that's factory made, And then as personal trainers, sports scientists, nutritionists, we're always singing about eating natural and staying away from packeted objects and factory processed things, yet in sports world we kind of revert back to just that.
Because everyone's afraid to be different. Everybody's they all want to stay in the norm and what the social media trends are trending. And it's funny because I take care of those people that believe in the trending, right? They come in here with the stress fractures, the eating disorders, and the malnourished. My guy is not malnourished and he's not injured. And I think that has been the difference, and people just couldn't understand it. And that, I think, to me, like, the nutrition is one part of it, but Paul is just a relentless athlete, and he's now evolved from an athlete to professional. And I think I've been blessed to have such an athlete that just believed in what we were talking about. There's probably times he thought I was crazy. Why would a nurse be able to train somebody when you have world-class coaches out there, right? You have world-class coaches, but he took a chance on me and I took a chance on him. And it was an honor to be right there with him and see him through the end.
Yeah. Looking around the runners, everyone had so much hydration and nutrition, bags of it, to where I thought, I haven't got enough here. I've come into this stupid, because I thought, I'll just carry a few Mars bars. I don't plan on sprinting this, so I shouldn't need to be taking these gels. I'll just eat whatever they got on the tables. And but after one or two races, I realized I was in contention with winning, and I started having to run a lot quicker. But still, I just made sure I was fully hydrated and with enough food going into each race. And every pit stop, take a drink, take something. I even resorted to Coca-Cola. I don't think I've drank Coca-Cola in 20 years, but I got to a point where I'm needing that sugar.
So here's one fear on the back of the Coca-Cola. Did you shake it flat?
Yeah. You know what? I ran past so quick and I drank and I thought, I hope this is flat. I didn't get any gas. I wasn't feeling uncomfortable, so I would imagine they did it for us because there was just cups of it on the table. So I'd imagine they did it for us. Otherwise, I would have felt the difference.
I mean, the nutrition aspect and you see, everyone sort of gravitates towards doing the same thing in the running community, the energy gels, etc. It just shows you that there's a whole lot more to it than just the energy gels and the nutrition. There's a lot of mindset, genetics, and just the will to push through them races.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean they're wrong, but it's just everything works for someone. Yeah. In what might work for one doesn't work for the other. Mm-hmm. And it's with experience you find what works for you, right?
For sure. So, Paul, in between the races, I don't know if you'd mind speaking us through how you kind of basically ate and slept, recovered. Did you have physiotherapists? Did you take a massage gun with you? How did all that work?
I did carry the gun the whole way, and I did not use it. And so when I finished my first race in Antarctica, we headed back to Cape Town, and that was the only time we had about 3 hours before race started. Every other time, within getting off the airplane, you had an hour and a half maximum, and that's including traveling by bus to the location. So you haven't got much rest, you haven't got much time. So when I was in Cape Town, I was in the hotel and there was a masseuse, so I got a massage. My quads were solid. Normally, it's my hamstrings what would start hurting after a 26 miler, but my hamstrings didn't hurt once all week. It was my quads, so I got a massage there, and I felt some races I was running off the lactic acid from the other race, but in between races we'd finish the race and everyone had 8 hours cut off. So, no disrespect to any of the runners, but I don't mean any of them harm, but I was I hope someone takes 8 because I want some more rest. So you sit down, you try and find something to eat. Depending on wherever you are, you might have to walk a mile, which is not what you want to do. You get something to eat, and you sit down and you're straight on the bus. And when you're talking about camaraderie, at the first couple of races during the week, you hear people talking to each other, but honestly, after the second race and you get on the plane, no one's got their head up, no one's talking. You're taking every opportunity to sleep. So once I got on that plane, I was making sure that I was in a position where the flight attendants couldn't see me. And the second the plane started taxiing, I had the blanket over my head, my seat back, and I slept every minute I could. I was sleeping. I had my eyes shut. I wasn't talking to anybody. I wasn't wasting a second.
Yeah, it's absolutely vital, isn't it?
Yeah.
So have you got any plans to run any kind of like ultra marathons or?
Yeah, so I've done one, which was this one, Big Buffalo 50. It was a 52 miler here in Memphis. I have another one set up in May on the Isle of Skye, Scotland. It's a 75-mile race. So look forward to that.
When is that, sorry, Paul?
It's May. I think it's May the 23rd, but it's
Right,
definitely
okay.
May. Yeah.
I've heard people calling you the Macam David Goggins. That's what I've heard.
You ain't got an out on me, mate.
Did you take any inspiration from him?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. My wife says, I'll allow you to do this race and pay for this race if you read one of his books. And I started reading it, and I was getting a bit carried away. Oh, this guy's great. And then I thought, you know what? I don't think he's done much more than I've done in the boxing world and my fitness world. His just sounds really good. And if someone shouts about fitness enough, people start believing it. And my wife was, and everyone I met, and like read his book and thought he was great. And he ran a 3:09 marathon when he was like 25. So going into my marathon, my first marathon, my wife didn't know me growing up. She didn't know my boxing career or what I could do. So I was like, I've got to beat David Goggins. Is it even possible? But when I finished my first marathon, 3:01, I seen her at the finish line, and as a semi-alcoholic fibre splicer or construction worker, whatever you want to call it, the first thing I says to her, told you I beat David Goggins.
It would be interesting to know what his reaction is to what you've done, I suppose, and hear his thoughts on it.
Yeah, no disrespect to him or any other runner out there. I mean, the guy's obviously great, and he's made this long distance runner really famous for the sport. You know, he's got a lot of attention out there for it. There's a lot more people doing it now, and there's better people doing it now. But it's the entertainment business, right? You haven't got to be the best in the world to be the one making the money or selling the tickets.
Yeah, well, I think if you speak to anybody that's not massively interested in sport, and you mention someone like Mo Farah, they remember the Mobot, but they probably don't know the last race he ran.
Yeah.
So did you have to self-fund this, Paul?
Yes, I did. Yes.
So I'm gathering you've got sponsors reaching out now, yeah?
Not yet, but I would imagine they might, or it would help if I now approach them with that under my belt. I just don't have a social media world. I think my wife set me up like an Instagram a while ago, and I think I have like 4 followers on my family members.
Yeah.
Where there was people in this race who had the whole 50 grand paid for, and they're running like 6-7 hour marathons. Once again, it's social media.
Yeah,
They've got
absolutely.
200,000, 300,000 likes.
Out there for you now, though. You've just got to look for them as well, haven't you?
We are actually chatting with somebody quite shortly. She's a young athlete, and she's now sponsored by Nike. She's doing very well. So you never know. Maybe Nike will see the interview, what we put out about her, and do a little bit troll and see this one as well. So you might come with a big tick on your feet and T-shirt this time next year or whatever. And why not?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think there's a niche out there for men or even women in their 40s who think it's over, because that's the going saying, right? Everyone's like, oh, I'm 40 now, it's over. And I remember Sonrisa telling me something. I would always complain, I'm not the person I was when I was 27. I found it so hard getting back into training, because I remember no one could beat me at anything when I was younger. That was my number one thing, fitness. I could do anything. And then when I started again at 39, I was so unfit and everything hurt.
But from a psychology point of view, though, you're probably thinking that thought from being in your prime as well. You're probably not thinking that from day one of training before you went in for your first session on the bag, before you even stepped in the ring. So what are we comparing?
Was that really different? I just kept myself fit for that long. But Sonrisa said, like, don't worry about the person you were, concentrate on the person you're going to be.
Absolutely.
And you know what, after 19 months, I feel I'm fitter now in the running business than I was when I was 27.
Well, I mean, you were probably competing against people in the prime, like in the late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're 40, well, yes, you're 40-year-old, and also you didn't start actually running any kind of marathons until you were, what, 38, 39?
39, yeah.
When was your last boxing fight? 2009?
I'm really not sure. Whatever's 27, about 13 years ago, yeah.
Whatever the internet says.
So you've had that period of
Yeah.
not doing any kind of sport, or I'm gathering any kind of exercise, if so, probably little.
Yeah. And it's, you know what surprising is, you think you didn't, a lot of people think, oh, well, you know how to get fit. Well, no, I don't. I only got fit once in my life and I stayed fit. So
Yeah, you've
there's a skill of getting fit. Yeah.
As a coach and a sports scientist, what would you say to anybody that's looking up to Paul and wants to have a go at their own challenge without any kind of sporting background?
I think that, just getting paired up with a group of people that have the same like-minded goals, I think that's a good starting spot, because sometimes when you're new at something, you need that accountability from a group of people. And in the running world, everyone's like, hey, you didn't show up for a run today. Are you okay? Do you want to come run with us? And sometimes you have that camaraderie that really does set the foundation, just kind of keep the momentum going. So I would say, first and foremost, start there, and start small. Paul bit a big chunk off immediately, and so this is what we're doing. But I think for somebody who is just brand new in the sport, we're going to start small, and let's just start with the 5K. And we'll kind of start chipping away and just kind of seeing what type of athlete you are. Help with the mental aspect. 80 to 90% of running marathons is all mental. And then just having the like I said, the right-minded people, pairing up with nutritionists so that your body can be fueled, and it eliminates injuries so that we can kind of keep enjoying the sport. And don't worry who you were. Like we told Paul, we're going to focus on who do we want to become and what goals do we want to achieve. Can't go back. We don't want to go back, because the person that was who we were back then and who we're trying to come out of we're leaving depression and leading into something that is just monumentally just kind of shifting into a whole new mindset and new endeavors and new personality. So that's kind of what I would tell a new person. And enjoy it and have fun. Don't make it a job. Don't make it anything other than just something fun to do, and you'll see your goals can be made and can be reached.
I think that's a really powerful message, because people look back and think, I wish I was in my 20s again, or I wish I was as fit as I used to be, or as had the body that I used to have when I was young, a teenager, whatever. And people are constantly looking back rather than looking forward and seeing the potential and things that they can do now. I think that's a really powerful message that you've just said, and you've said a couple of times during the podcast as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we always tell our runners, or just our athletes in general, and people that are, unsure about wanting to just get fit, it's either you're going to pay for illness or you'll pay for wellness. Mm-hmm. And to me, paying for wellness is a heck of a fun, it's a funner journey to endure than pills and doctor's offices and just falling apart. The world it's a hard place to live now, right? And we're dealing with social media and politicalness and all the things that are just kind of getting thrown at us at one time. And I tell people, focus on your core element of your home and the people in it. Focusing on your mental stability, focusing on what you have the ability to change. And fitness and health and wellness are in your trajectory to change.
I don't know how it is in the US, but we certainly get it here where, obviously we've got the likes of the NHS here, where we don't pay at first point for our health treatment. But we get it time and time again from a gym setting, people saying that they can't come to the gym because they're not fit enough to start a fitness regime. But it's an excuse, isn't it? But B, how do people get fit not necessarily gym fitness, but how do they go for a jog in the park? How do they walk the dog? How do they get the bike out of the shed if they're not willing to take that first step?
There's a lot of fear involved as well. People like these two guys who I know personally were brought up in gyms. We know gyms, Boise boxing gym. We're kind of just used to walking in gyms, and it's a big fear gap for a lot of people who's never did that before. And I used to love going.
So you broke up there, Paul. Can you hear us? Oh, well, you broke up a little bit there,
It's
sorry.
like, what do I do now, right? So.
I completely get that, because you're right in what you're saying. Like as young lads, you were in and around kind of gyms and things, but I completely get people's anxieties. I was doing a little bit away from home a couple of years back, and I walked into one of the big green budget gym chains, and like, no massive disrespect to them, but it was quite a hostile environment. I felt uncomfortable. I felt out of place. I felt like there was eyes on, and really I didn't want to be there. I was there because I needed to be. And if I felt like that after operating a gym and after being in and around a fitness environment, these new people who feel unfit are probably swimming against the tide a little bit, I suppose. So I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So last question, I suppose, would you do it again?
So would I do the World Marathon again? Probably not. I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it more just because I won.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds great going on every continent, but you got your eyes shut. You're asleep all the time on the plane. You're from London to taking off, you're probably out 10 hours, and you're not seeing anything. So basically you're just running and running, and I'm not a fan of running to start with, believe it or not, but
you picked the wrong time.
So I've had a great experience, and I think next time if I was to spend any sort of money like that or do something like that again, have something where there's a bit more enjoyment in. Where
what about the World Cruise Championships?
Sounds good. Now the company Runbook does host I think it's a North Pole Marathon, and you actually jump on a cruise for 4 or 5 days and only run one marathon or 50 mile or 100 mile or something. So that sounds better right now. Have a bit more enjoyment, not just the running side of it.
He's a seed planted them, which I'm sure while you've done your research you've already considered, but for not a lot more money really, the summit of Everest.
Yeah, I've thought about it. I am aware you haven't got to be a climber to climb Everest. The average person is, I'm told, I'm not saying this myself, I'm told the average fitness person can climb Everest, I would like to do it. I definitely would like to do it. Yeah, it's the time. I think it takes a couple of months, right, from start to finish to get up and down. And that's a lot of time off work. Yeah, man, I would love now to give my job up and go traveling and exploring and adventuring. I mean, if there's a sponsor out there wanting to document all of that, I'm the guy. But yeah, I think all my runs in the future are going to be vacation runs. So if I'm going to go on vacation,
to be honest, I think
I want to pick a run.
Like you said, like a documentary or something like that. I think someone going from not running 18 months to then winning the World Marathon Challenge, I think that's probably a good sell to any kind of, even like small filmmakers or anything like that. I think that's a good idea.
Well, I think the Discovery Channel would be mad.
That would put you out there and give you some opportunities, I guess, to be a professional athlete and get paid, be full time.
Yeah. Maybe start working on my social media and to these podcasts for you guys and just putting the word out. Maybe we can reach someone. I mean, I'm sure there's interest there. I mean,
it only takes one person somewhere, doesn't it? So hopefully that person comes across something and reaches out.
Yeah, because I'd love to get that message across. Like it's never over. It's never over. You can always, your body will adapt. Your body will overcome, and you can always get back up and do it again.
You need to get some t-shirts and just, it's never over.
Yeah, but as I'm saying, like you think it's over 40, you think you want to celebrate, you've just done a great marathon or whatever, but you look, I still see 50-year-old, 60-year-old. I think I seen a guy the other day, 61 years old, done a 2:30 marathon. It's like, wow.
I done the Grey North Run a couple of years ago, and there was a guy in front that, don't quote us on the word for word, but the back of his T-shirt said, it was quite crude, I'm going to change the way I remember it slightly for the purposes of this, but it was along the lines of, I'm old, I've had a heart attack, I've had an arm amputated, and I'm in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's right,
Brilliant.
and I'm sure he probably inspired quite a few people that day. I mean, there was a lot of people overtaking him, as you can imagine, and every single one of those people would have read and I imagine been inspired by what that guy was doing that day. So.
For sure, and there was many people on this run who I'd beat who probably might have been working harder than me. They've overcome so much. People who lost family members, people who lost organs, people who had cancer in remission. You could see them struggling around the course. I was just lucky. I went in there fresh and no injuries and mentally sound.
Well, to
But
say life
it's
starts at 40, doesn't it? So,
I hope so.
well, I guess we'll leave it there, Paul. It's been good talking to you and talking to your coach as well. I think there's a lot of insights there and a lot of value.
I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Evolve Your Health Beyond the Bench. Please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. It really makes a big difference, and it means that you don't miss out on any of the other great guests we've got coming up. You can also watch our gym reviews and get other health and fitness related tips right here on this channel.